This is a video for Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade that I got a lot of requests for on the previous investment tier list video where I went over all the characters in the game. Now I was going to do all the recollections including SRs and rares in one video, but then I just realized like that is too massive of an undertaking to actually go through and put them all in order within all the tiers and make it look exactly right, especially when I'm doing this off the top of my head and trying to remember what all the recollections do. Like, it's a lot easier because there's less characters and you can kind of remember what the characters do and how good they are. So I am going to do my best with this investment tier list. Please keep that in mind that I don't know every recollection by heart. I have looked up a few here that I need to reference as I'm going through this, so I'll tell you what they do and give you my reasoning for putting them where I put them in this investment tier list here. Hopefully this will help you guys out with figuring out what recollections you want to invest in first and which ones you want to invest in later. Once again, every recollection in the game can be probably used in some scenario, but there are going to be ones that are definitely better than others. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop right into it. We'll just go in order. This first one is very, very good. Increases overall taijutsu damage. I would go high investment priority. It's going to be good on taijutsu characters like Itadori and the first anniversary Itadori that just came out. This is like the best recollection you can run on him. So even though it's not the greatest on global right now, I do think it is a high investment priority for people because there are going to be characters that come out in the game here soon that use this particular recollection quite a bit. So it is very, very important. Next, we have non-standard. To nobody's surprise, it is actually going to go above that one. High investment priority, insanely good jujutsu damage, very, very helpful. This next recollection is also a high investment priority. So starting off the rip with 3 high investment priority recollections, they are all very good in my opinion and very decent. But next up we have the Hot Pot Party recollection, and the Hot Pot Party recollection isn't quite as good as those previous 3. So this one, when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, recovers own cursed energy by 15, and that's available after 3 turns have passed, an 8-turn cooldown. And then if you limit break it to level 1 at the start of the turn, if own HP is 40% or below, decreases own damage received by 50%. Like, just not the best limit break effect. The first effect is relatively okay. I would put this recollection probably in like maybe worth investing in. It might be in light investment, honestly, but I'll put it in worth investing in for now. I think it's going to be more towards the bottom of worth investing in. This next recollection I would say is even better because this recollection allows the character to draw aggro for 2 turns. This is insanely good on Gojo. There's one other recollection in the game that does this the same way, and there's technically a free-to-play recollection that does something similar, but right now it doesn't do it as good. It will in the future. It's this one right here. This one will be pretty similar to the one right here in the future when it gets buffed, but for right now it's kind of not as good. So this one I would put in worth investing in, definitely above this recollection, because being able to draw aggro onto your Gojo, if you have Gojo, can be super helpful depending on the stage you're taking on, where you need a enemy to just give you 2 turns where you don't have to worry about anything. Next up we have the Web of Spiders, I think is what it's called. Web of Schemes actually is what it's called. So when command skill is activated, decreases own damage received by 40% for 2 turns. That's fairly okay. And then at the start of the 6th turn from the start of battle, increases all allies' cursed energy consumption efficiency by 3 for 3 turns, but that takes 6 turns into battle before you get that second effect. That's what makes this particular recollection not very good, because really it only has the one effect. Because by the time you get to the 6th turn, you're usually about done with battle, especially if you're running Gojo, because Gojo leaves on turn 7, right? So you're only getting the one effect of when your command skill is activated, decreases your own damage received by 40%. And that's not super helpful unless you're putting it on like a supporter type character trying to keep them alive. But even then, on your support characters, you typically want a support recollection like Unity from top to bottom to help out your other allies. So for that reason, I will put this one down here and don't invest. I would really probably not worry about using this one too much. I mean, it's okay for defense, but like I said, I just don't see a lot of scenarios where you want to use that over like a support recollection for the rest of your team. Next up, we have the recollection called A Slight Gap, and this one, when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, recovers own HP by 35%. That's a really big amount of HP recovered, which is decent. And then additionally, it gives the other effect of recovering own cursed energy by 10. And then if you limit break it at the start of battle, decreases own damage received by 10% as well. So I think it's actually a fairly decent recollection because of all the different things it does. And you know, the 10 energy back is actually massive, and 35% HP is pretty decent with a 6-turn cooldown, and it can be done from the start of battle on a command skill as well. I think it is worth investing in, but I don't think it's necessarily like at the top of the worth investing in. I think, well, it might be. It's definitely above this one. I don't know if it's above this one. I would say they're about on par. This one might technically be a little bit better than drawing aggro, but I find that drawing aggro honestly pretty invaluable, so I would put that one right here. Next up, we have the crit rate recollection right here. This crit rate recollection is nice, but the problem with it is that it doesn't really do much for your damage. It's almost better to have a damage recollection because plenty of characters can hit crits if you do type advantage and stuff. So crit rate doesn't do a lot for you if you're already type advantaged. So I'm going to put it in light investment for fun. I think it could have the right uses given the right circumstance where you specifically need crits, but in most content, you're not really going to need crit rate. Granted, it is like the biggest amount of crit rate. I think it's like 60%, so it's pretty decent. Next up, we have the I bought local souvenirs recollection, and so this recollection is pretty decent because it gives you taijutsu damage and jujutsu damage for 1 turn 1 time, and it has a 4-turn cooldown. It can be used on a command skill or an ultimate skill, and then if you limit break it to level 1, when own ultimate skill gauge is full, increases own taijutsu damage by 15% and jujutsu damage by 15% 2 times. I do think this one's worth investing in. I would actually probably put it above all the others for worth investing in so far. I would say that one's pretty dang decent. For the next few recollections, they're all going to be really, really good. It's just the way they were ended up being, you know, loaded in here. But this one definitely going into high priority. You definitely want to invest in it. It gives you a resurrection and gives you like 70% taijutsu damage. And then if you're below a certain amount of health, an extra 30% taijutsu damage, so 100% taijutsu damage with a resurrect. Honestly, I'm gonna put it here for now just because it's kind of hard to get that consistent damage, but like there's an argument for it to be there. Pretty good recollection though. This one is also a good recollection for damage as well, so I'm gonna put it up here. Once again, adult time, a very good recollection for damage as well. I think it does go below these other ones though, and it kind of goes in order. And then this one, once again, very good recollection for damage. And this final one right here for this set of ridiculous recollections that just go up into high investment priority that you want to invest in is actually kind of underrated by people, but really, really good because of the limit break skill. So the general skill, when command skill is activated, decreases all allies damage received by 30% for 1 turn. That is an 8-turn cooldown. 30% damage reduction to the entire team is fairly decent, but then the limit break skill is what's really important and can make a big difference in like later battles, harder content in the game. At the start of battle, recovers all allies cursed energy by 10. Giving an extra 10 cursed energy can literally be a game changer in this game when it comes to using your skills. So it's actually a high investment priority recollection, and not a lot of people would probably think that when they first look at this recollection, but it's actually fairly decent. It does go at the bottom of high investment. It might almost go down to worth investing in, but for now I'm going to keep it up there because it's actually fairly okay. These next 3 recollections I had to look up because I honestly couldn't remember what they do. This one's even a free-to-play recollection, but I haven't used it a whole lot. But I do think it's fairly decent looking at it, literally because of the limit break skill. So the limit break skill for this one, at the start of battle, decreases own damage received by 20%. That's a 20% damage reduction for the entire battle. That in and of itself makes this recollection worth investing in, but then the normal skill, when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, recovers own HP by 30%. So if you were looking for a tank recollection, remember I talked about tank recollections earlier, I feel like this is the only one for you because this one's actually fairly decent. So in terms of like recollections that actually give you more tank ability, I'm going to put this one in worth investing in. I would still say it's kind of more towards the bottom of worth investing in, but I do think it is a fairly decent tank recollection. Typically though, I don't think you're going to be choosing tank recollections over like support ones that are actually going to help your allies and your team. For the next recollection you see there, it is called Desperate resistance. And so when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, it increases own damage dealt by 40% for 2 turns. If own HP is 50% or below when activating, increases own damage dealt by an additional 15% for 2 turns. So a 55% damage increase if you're below a certain amount of HP is pretty good. And then the limit break skill is what I find really, really good. At the start of the turn, if HP is 50% or below, fills own ultimate skill gauge by 1000. Basically, you just get a free ult if you're below 50% HP coming into like the last phase of a boss fight or something like that, which I think could be insanely useful. So I'm gonna put this one like probably in terms of worth investing in. Yeah, I'd put it right here. I would say it's pretty good. And once again, if you guys would change any of these orders, change the order that these are in, let me know down in the comments. I'm not perfect. These are just my opinions, but hopefully this is relatively like right for the recollections that you want to invest in first. And then next up on the list, we have Narrow Escape from Death. So this one, when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own taijutsu damage by 31%, excuse me. And at the start of each wave for the limit break skill, decreases own jujutsu damage received by 25%. So increasing taijutsu damage and reducing jujutsu damage received can be very good given specific stages, right? But for this one, I would probably put it like in light investment right now. I think it's okay. I don't think it's on the same level as some of these other ones above. I do like the idea that it can reduce jujutsu damage by 25% for 3 turns. Like that's actually really good. I think I'm gonna put it above Nanami. Like that's actually really, really solid. But then the taijutsu damage that it increases, it's only 31% for 1 turn, 1 time. I don't think that's nearly as good, but it does have a 5-turn cooldown. So for that reason, light investment towards the top may be an argument for going up to worth investing in, but that's just my opinion. Next up, we have this recollection, which gives the ultimate gauge. Like this one, honestly, it's a free-to-play recollection. You can max dupe it to 5. I'm gonna put it up in high investment priority just because it can be used to get you an ultimate quicker. I used it in the 2-turn Gojo ultimate video that I did. I think it's really good. I think it's very, very beneficial depending on which content you're taking on. Now, keep in mind with this recollection though, if you put it on someone like Gojo, you're trading out a damage recollection like non-standard to get him his ultimate faster. So there's pluses and minuses, which is why I'm kind of putting it here at the bottom of high investment priority. It might actually just be a worth investing in, but I see its uses, so I want to put it there. Next, we have Pride. Pride is, in my opinion, the best recollection in the game, simply because it is free to play and you can max dupe it easily, right? And so for that reason, I actually rate Pride and I put it above non-standard. Granted, I think they're pretty much on par with each other. They each have their pluses and their minuses, right? But Pride can be used on a command skill as well if you want. So I think for sure it's the number 1 investment priority. This is why so many people will want to beat Jogo, because that's where you get this recollection from the Formidable Foe fight with Jogo, and that is just literally, in my opinion, one of the best in the game. It's hard to say if it's non-standard or Pride, but they're both very, very, very good. This recollection right here allows you to draw aggro 2 times, not 2 turns, 2 times. So basically for 2 attacks. Right now we are pre-patch. Post-patch is going to get updated to 7 turns for 2 times, which makes it a lot better. So right now, honestly, on global, it's not worth investing in. I would honestly put it right here on global, but the long term, knowing that it's going to get better, because these are like some recollections are going to get buffed, like even Pride is going to get changed a little bit. I'm going to put it at the bottom of worth investing in for right now. It should be like towards the bottom of your priority, but it will be more useful in the future because it will be 7 turns of 2 times per turn drawing aggro, which can actually be really, really solid. So I'm going to put that in worth investing in, but I would definitely not put it at the top, anywhere near the top, especially right now on global. Next up, we have Though the Future May Differ, which is an okay recollection because it has a 4-turn cooldown. That's really good, but then the effect is kind of subpar for the non-limit broken effect. When command skill is activated, increases own taijutsu damage by 40%. Obviously, there are recollections that do a lot more, like the ones up in high investments, but then at limit break level 1, at the start of battle, decreases own damage by 10% permanently for the battle. Like, that's okay, that's fairly decent, but like I said, just because we have other taijutsu recollections up here in high investment priority, if you have any of those, I feel like this one, like, it's kind of worth investing in, but I'm going to put it like in light investment. I'm going to put it at the top of light investment for right now because I don't think it's super crazy. I don't think it's like as good as these other ones to invest in, but it can definitely have its uses for sure. Next up, we have the Imaginary Youth featuring, of course, Junpei, who didn't get his time in the series, but this recollection certainly has gotten its time in the game. It's a very good recollection. So when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, recovers own cursed energy by 15. Recovering your cursed energy by 15 is insanely good, and it has a 4-turn cooldown. That's really, really good. And then at limit break level 1, at the start of the 6th turn from the start of battle, increases all enemies' Jujutsu damage received by 10% 2 times. That can be really useful if you have like an ultimate on turn 6. And then additionally, this effect doesn't really matter, but it does have an additional effect. If the enemy is afflicted by continuous Jujutsu damage poison status, increases the enemy's Jujutsu damage received by an additional 20% 2 times. So that's a 30% potentially Jujutsu damage increase on turn 6. Not to mention the fact that he recovers cursed energy with a 4-turn cooldown. It's a pretty decent recollection in my opinion, and one that is worth investing in. I would probably put it even above that recollection. Realistically, I probably put it right there. I probably put it right there because I can see a lot of uses of that, specifically getting the curse energy. The low cooldown on it is really, really solid as well. So that's probably where I would place that recollection overall. Now, next up, we have this recollection here, which is the free-to-play solo camping with Satoru Gojo. This one is another very good damage recollection, and because it's free-to-play, if people got it, I'm going to put it probably at the top of worth investing in just because it's free-to-play, and it's something you should have been able to hopefully limit break fairly easily if you guys did the event. So at the top of worth investing in, especially for free-to-play players. Like, that's a really, really good recollection. Next up, we have the new recollection from the JJK 0 event that is going on right now. And this one is not the greatest. I'm not going to say don't invest in it completely, but I'm going to put it at the bottom of light investment. I don't think it's super, super crazy. And also, same thing with this other one. I don't think it's, actually that one probably goes above. I don't think it's super crazy, but it's okay. It has its uses. We have the Strong, I actually don't know the full name of this, the Will of the Strong, something like that. Hold on, let me check. Next up, we have a Play of the Strong, my bad, but this one gives taijutsu damage of 60% for 2 turns, only when a command skill is activated, so that's a little bit rough. If you forget to activate it the turn before your ultimate, you don't get the full effect of it. And then additionally, at limit break 1, you get evasion 1 time, which isn't the greatest, so like it does taijutsu damage, which is pretty decent, like it's similar to this, but this one gives a resurrect, right? Like it's so much better. So this one, I would probably put worth investing in as well. I almost like this one better though, because it gives taijutsu and jujutsu damage, so I think right there is a fair place to kind of put it overall. Next, we have Yuta's recollection. Yuta's recollection is, I would say, similar to like on par with that one. Actually, I'm going to put it right there. It's pretty dang decent with the ability to heal and stuff that it gives. I think it's decent. A lot of people are using it right now, so I'm not going to go into depth explaining that one because it is brand new and hopefully people are using it. This is the new recollection we are getting on the Getzo banner, the strongest pair, or I guess at the point this video comes out, it will have already been out probably, but I'm going to put this one. Also, this one's tough. This one's really tough, actually. It either goes at the top of worth investing in, or it goes up to high investment priority. I think it actually goes up to high investment priority. I think it's better than some of these. I think it goes like right there. I really do think it goes like right there. It's pretty dang decent in my opinion, and I think you'll find a lot of uses for that recollection. And I think it's going to be better than Adult Time and some of these other recollections that I placed below it. So I feel pretty good placing it right there. Next up, we have Goodbye, Take Care, and when command skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 10% for 3 turns. That's okay. That's such a low amount of Jujutsu damage increase, and it's an 8-turn cooldown on it additionally. And then if you limit break this recollection, if own HP is 40% or below, decreases own damage received by 15%. Like, that's so bad because it requires you to be below 40% HP to get the damage reduction, whereas other recollections, you just come into the battle and have like a permanent 20% damage reduction like you saw in some of the other ones. So really, this recollection, it goes in the don't invest because there's just other recollections that do similar things but do it so much better, right? Next we have Your Late, and Your Late is actually an insanely good recollection that also comes out on the Ghetto banner. The Ghetto banner, like Ghetto isn't even the main pull, it's the recollections that are the pulls, right? So when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, it increases own Jujutsu damage by 40%, and then the big thing, recovers own curse energy by 10, 6-turn cooldown, so it's already better than the previous recollection, right? And then additionally, if you limit break it at the start of battle, permanently increases own Jujutsu damage by 15%. That 15% Jujutsu damage increase permanently is pretty good, and then you get the 40% Jujutsu damage from using the actual recollection when you use a command skill or ultimate skill. That's a 55% increase, and then if you were to limit break it to level 3, that damage goes from 40% to 45%, overall making it, if you add it all up, a 60% Jujutsu damage increase along with recovering 10 cursed energy. So that is pretty dang decent to have that amount of Jujutsu damage increase and recover cursed energy. So honestly, I have a hard time figuring out which one of these two to put above each other, but I'm going to put that one right there. I think it might be slightly better, but this one might be slightly bad. It's so hard. It's literally so hard. And this recollection is really good because it gives damage starting from the 4th turn of the start of battle. Not to mention the other effect it does, that's just the limit break effect. I say as far as like support recollections go, honestly, it's hard to say because like this is why it's so hard to make this tier list, because some of these recollections are for support, some of these recollections are for damage. But if we're talking about like, okay, the top 4, okay, yeah, right here actually is good. These top 4 are like your top 4 damage recollections, right? I feel like those 4 are your top ones. We'll put the support one right here. I can't really say if the support one's above any of the damage ones, right? But in terms of investment, like this is kind of how you want to go. Hopefully that makes sense. This is why it's so freaking hard though, really, guys. Next up, we have the Snake God Sacrifice, and this one I might be a little bit biased towards just because I hate any recollections that do this, but when ultimate skill is activated, increases own damage dealt by 30% for 2 turns. Okay, fine, but you sacrifice 15% of your own HP to do that, and it has a 7-turn cooldown. And then the limit break effect at the start of battle increases own ultimate skill gauge charge rate by 15% for 2 turns. Like, that's okay. The skill gauge, ultimate skill gauge charge rate by 15% is okay, but there's other recollections that do it better, and they don't require you to sacrifice your own HP. So honestly, like, it's either at the bottom of light investment, or technically if I'm ordering these, I'd put it above the other two, and I like the way the don't invest looks. Like, you can invest in it if you really want to, but there's other recollections that just do it better. The next one we have is the one featuring Nanami. It's called I Will Follow You, Nanami-san. And so what this one does, when command skill is activated, increases own critical hit rate by 25% for 3 turns. And then if you limit break it, when critical hit is performed, increases all allies taijutsu damage by 20% for 3 turns. So the thing about this one is it actually could be useful. I talked about previously how critical hit rate isn't that great in this game, which is true. But if you are hitting crits, every time you hit a crit with that character that this recollection is equipped to, you are increasing all allies taijutsu damage by 20%, which could be very, very good, because you can potentially be stacking an extra 20% taijutsu because it lasts for 3 turns on all your allies if you're able to hit multiple crits in a row each turn. And then, like, for example, with the new Itadori, who is coming out, by the way, for the 1st anniversary of JP, I feel like this recollection gets a whole new meaning, because now Itadori gets 2 attacks in 1 turn, and having 2 attacks in 1 turn means he can hit 2 crits, meaning in 1 turn he can stack 20%, well, really 40% extra taijutsu damage on allies, which makes this really, really good. But right now on global, it's not going to be as great, right? But on JP right now, this thing is probably going crazy. So I'm going to put it in worth investing in, but I'm going to put it like towards the bottom, because once again, I'm going to even put it below this one, because we won't get this full use until I feel like the new Itadori comes out, who is currently just now coming out on JP, whereas we'll get this update before we ever get that, right? So at the bottom of worth investing in, you don't need to do it right now, but like it will be useful in the future, so it'll be nice if you have it upgraded ahead of time. And it's still, even now, I would say better than these other recollections below, in my opinion. Next up, we have Won't Admit to Being in Trouble. When command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own critical hit rate by 10% for 4 turns, 7-turn cooldown. Once again, crit rate, not the greatest thing. And then if you limit break it to level 1, when critical hit is performed, increases all allies' ultimate skill gauge charge rate by 15%. So it's kind of similar to the one we just looked at, except for this time it's ultimate skill gauge charge rate, which is decent. 15% isn't the craziest thing though. So I think it's just all right. I think it goes in light investment. I think it probably goes like realistically maybe honestly, no, it's got to go below Nanami, and I feel like actually Nanami probably, well, yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better. I think actually maybe like this. I think that's the order. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the greatest. I mean, like I said, with Itadori now getting 2 skills in 1 action, landing 2 crits in 1 turn, increasing ultimate skill gauge charge rate for people is actually okay, but I don't know how good that is. So I feel like light investment for now might become better in the future, but I doubt it. This recollection, I'm going to put down in don't invest. I'll put it above the Yuta one. It's okay. It's a free to play recollection. It's just not the greatest. The next recollection is going to be it's called City Shop and Eat Tour. So when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, grants taunt status to self for 2 turns, and then limit broken at the start of the turn if own ultimate skill gauge is full, increases own damage dealt by 20% for 2 turns. I think that's actually pretty decent, and then the more turns that have passed, the greater the damage dealt, up to 100% increase. So that's actually worth investing in to a degree. I think it's about the same as this recollection right here, but maybe slightly better. So I'm going to put it right there above that recollection because they both do pretty much the same thing. And then last but not least, we have Unity from top to bottom, which is just absolutely freaking goated. If you have this recollection, honestly, top 3. It goes even above the damage ones. Top 3 recollection. And I think that's exactly the order right there. It goes Pride, Non-Standard, Unity from top to bottom. Those are your top 3 recollections that you want to invest in. And that is the tier list, guys. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button. And thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. Peace.